Telltale guys, Lost Cities.
What's your ETA? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Come on, we have lives to save here.
Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Telltale Guys. I am one of your hosts, Zane, and I am with my other co-host, Josh. We're here to tell you about all kind of the weird, interesting, and just kind of vibing things that's happened throughout our human history, what's happening right now. Yeah, we just have another tale to tell. Josh, how you doing?
Doing pretty well this week, Zane. I see we color coordinated today on our shirts
I know.
unintentionally.
Is the text on there? Is it goldish like mine, or is it?
Mine's
white?
is white. It's
White.
Bob Ross.
Bob.
Says no mistakes, just happy accidents. What's yours say?
Mine is just like a Georgia Tech, just like
Okay.
Go Ramblin' Wreck to help Georgia. The text on there seems like it's for a metal rock band on your shirt, and it doesn't vibe with the positive vibe that Bob.
You don't know enough about Bob Ross. He was quite hardcore.
Was he a metal guy?
No, I don't know about that. I think he liked the ladies though. So
seriously,
yeah. If I remember, I watched the documentary about him recently. It was pretty good about his art and stuff like that. And I think his son was talking about like some stuff that was going on behind the scenes and things like that. But pretty interesting. If you like Bob Ross, I recommend it.
Okay.
But that's not what we're talking about today. Not art, Zane.
Not a really good segue into this topic. But
no, not. Okay. No. But
what do we got this week?
Bob Ross never painted cities. He always painted scenery. So speaking of cities, we're going to be talking about lost cities.
Well, maybe these are like vanishing cities that didn't occur on his paintings.
Yeah, happy little cities.
Yeah,
some of them, I guess.
Right.
But so lost cities is what we're going to be talking about this week, Zane. And I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with some lost cities. Perhaps one off top of your head, go. What's a lost city?
Atlantis.
There you go. Atlantis.
Probably the number one.
Yeah, number one. Everyone talks about it. So we're not talking about it. That one's been done to death.
All right.
We're not going to cover Atlantis.
I like it.
I did think about covering Atlantis a little bit, but I think I really need to do just a whole show just about that and probably focus in really on just like one place. I think that has a good candidacy for Atlantis, the Eye of the Sahara, but we really won't get into that. But maybe another city that people are familiar with, Zane, is Troy. We've heard of Troy, haven't we?
Yes, I have. I did not know it technically vanished or is.
Well, yeah. So the myth of Troy, and I'm not going to really get into Troy so much in this episode. I just wanted to highlight it just a touch at the beginning here. But Troy, obviously, from Greek mythology, the battles and stuff with the gods and all that stuff. It was a movie with Brad Pitt in it.
He was handsome in it. That's all I think about when I think of Troy, not just the historic vanishing cities.
He was more attractive than Helen of Troy, I guess, in that movie.
That's I might have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, I was a little underwhelmed by Helen in that, but what, she was still okay. But anyway, so Troy was everyone thought it was like a myth and it didn't really exist just because it was like in the stories. It was like such fantastical stuff going on with it, with the gods and stuff like that. And that was about 4,000 years ago or so. And like I said, everyone just thought it was a myth with the Trojan War, the Trojan horse and all that stuff. But in 1870, archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, he put all the pieces together from like the texts and clues on where it was located and stuff like that, and kind of ventured to this place, and you'll see on the screen here, in Turkey, where Troy is located in Hisarlik, Turkey. And so he like dug around in this particular location and he found it. And then they excavated layers and layers. I mean, Troy is like so old. It had like at least nine layers of cities built on top of other cities on top of itself. So it was quite deep and stuff like that. But I mean, that's probably another one people think of when they think of lost cities, and it's a
Right.
fairly famous one that was discovered and found out to be true. So, hopefully an inspiration for ones that we'll get into here, but pretty cool. So,
El Dorado. All right.
yes, El Dorado, you know this one. The lot. Well, particularly, I'm going to get into the lost city of Z. Have you heard of that? Zane?
Yes, I have.
No, Z for Zane, the lost city of Zane.
No,
That's
no, no connection, but I've heard of that this particular lost city, but I know a little bit about it, but
oh,
I'm
okay.
sure you're
Well,
gonna enlighten me.
sure. Well, feel free to jump in with any corrections you might know. But the Lost City of Z, and a lot of people might confuse it or get it mixed in with the Cities of Gold or El Dorado, which is what this movie is right here from the
Hmm.
2000s. Chell, very hot. But it's not
Yes.
really a city of gold myth, although it was kind of in the same vein of the South American cities and stuff like that, but not to be confused with the seven cities of gold, which El Dorado is kind of more in line with those cities, of these cities that were like scattered throughout the Americas that were supposedly made out of gold. Have you ever heard of the cartoon, The Mysterious Seven Cities of Gold, Zane?
No, when did it air?
Um, that was in the 1980s, the early 80s, I think is when it actually came out. One of my favorites, actually. Actually, you know what? I have a little video here of the intro. Maybe
Okay.
it'll jog a childhood memory of yours because they didn't
Maybe.
play it in syndication for years after that. I think
Yeah.
on
I am
Nickelodeon.
younger than you, so maybe I missed out. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
a little
Yeah.
bit, but when it came out, kind of around the time I was born, but I saw it when I was a little bit older because
Mhm.
Nickelodeon or whatever. But let's play it for everyone because it's one of my favorites and kind of inspires the adventuring in lost cities.
Children of the sun, see your time has just begun. Searching for your way.
This was like a
through
French and
adventures every day,
band.
every day and night. With the condor in flight, with all your friends in tow, you search for the cities of gold.
Okay, I'll just play a little bit of it for
I,
you.
I could not hear you whatsoever during
Oh,
that,
you
but
couldn't hear me?
yeah, I couldn't. But I know you're talking a little bit about like segments of that intro.
Yeah,
Um,
I was just talking about like the condor they flew around in. It was like a giant golden
okay.
airplane and then this golden ship that was powered by like the sun, I think. Anyways, the concept of this show was like the kid was like a little Spanish kid, and it was during the age of exploration, like the 1600s or whatever. And he came over to the New World because he had this medallion that I think his father left him, and he was a key to get into the cities of gold.
Hmm.
And so around his adventures, he'd pick up these other people from like the Incan Empire, what have you. Anyways, one of my favorites from my childhood that really like make you want to go adventure around for lost cities,
I
which is
don't remember that one specifically, but it looks like I know I would have probably liked that. It looked pretty
I highly
interesting.
recommend it. I don't know, it's hard to find. Like I had to get it from like a bootleg or something from like England that had them all like recorded or something.
To get that promo or the
No,
the
no,
intro.
that's on YouTube, but I like the actual full series. Like it's hard to
Oh,
find, or it was
okay.
when I would try to find it a few years back. Anyways, I got it. Very highly recommended. You check it out sometime. I'll let you borrow mine if that's okay. But anyway,
Works for
so
me.
what's that?
Works for me.
Okay. So yeah, the cities of gold though, in particular, the lost cities of gold, but what we're talking about is the lost city of Z. So back in like the times of the conquistadors, Zane, 1600 or 16th century, the Spanish, they were told these amazing tales of cities in the forests and the jungles of the Americas, and cities, magnificently wealthy, just built out
Hmm.
of gold, obviously. And the Spaniards, they got conquest boners over this, and
Yes, they did.
they were just like, "Give me all that gold."
Some conquest rage boners. Yeah, it was it wasn't positive times for all the locals. when they came down.
No. So that inspired a lot of their, marching and discovering, I guess, of things in South America or whatever. So they were looking for these cities, and they'd follow any little rumor they would have or sighting of a city that someone told them, and they never really found any of these golden cities, right? But all those myths kind of still lingered, and in the jungles and stuff where people were they were so thick, obviously. They just, hey, there's a jungle here somewhere. There's a city down the road or down the river. And they go and there's nothing there. But
Mhm.
Z, the city of Z, wasn't so much a solid gold city, but it was more the remnants of an ancient civilization.
Oh,
But let's focus on Percy Fawcett. I'm sure you're familiar with him, being familiar with this story of the city of Z.
a little bit,
But
yeah.
for those who aren't familiar with Fawcett, he was a famed British surveyor and explorer. I believe he was also a lieutenant colonel in the British Army, and he was fairly well known at the time, very famous. So between 1906 and 1924, Fawcett conducted 7 expeditions to the Amazon for a lost city he referred to as Z. He believed this city existed after conducting extensive research and of reading of old documents that he found, historical references. Most notably, there's a document called Manuscript 512.
Hmm.
And actually, let me bring back up my slides here for you. Chell, sorry, you got to go away.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, well, she can come back for you, Zane.
Thanks.
So this is the actual document, 512. And you can't really read it because it's
Mhm.
small, but if you're looking on YouTube, it looks like an old historical document, right? So this legend of Z kind of is all based off of this document for the most part. And this was found in 1839 in the National Library of Brazil. And this document was believed to come from early Portuguese settlers in Brazil. And it stated that in 1753, a group of them found some ruins in the city, or ruins of a city in the jungles. And the document described the city as having a triple archway, similar to like Roman triumphal arches
Hmm.
that were inscribed with an unknown language. The city had a the city square had like a black pedestal type thing and a statue of a man pointing north near another building that had reliefs on it and inlaid artwork that depicted crows, crosses, some sort of swirls, and other designs. The city square, had Roman style spires. Maybe they think like obelisks or something like that
Huh.
on the corners of the city. The main street had reliefs carved featuring like half naked figures wearing laurel crowns,
Right.
and next to the
Very
square.
Romanesque, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. A lot of the things are kind of described in this classical, ancient, Greek, Roman type of feel to it. But next to the square, there was a river, and in this document, it says that the group followed the river and found a series of mine shafts and with rocks containing silver, like a, a buttload of silver, and more inscriptions that they couldn't read. And outside the city, they found like a courtside manor with like 15 houses around a giant central room, and they examined the soil near the river that the city was at, and they found it had gold flecks in it, like lots of gold. And they mentioned some animals in the area too to kind of add weight to it. I guess they said like a maned wolf and kangaroo rats. Um, that's a maned wolf right there, Zane. You might. They have like the really long legs. They're not really a wolf. They look more like a fox, but they're not a fox. It's just a South
Right.
American dog, really tall. And then a picture that's a kangaroo rat. Now, I don't know if kangaroo rats live in Brazil. Maybe they do. So, like, as far as like credibility for this document, maybe if you're describing animals, this is a I suppose this is a story I found. It's from a few years ago, 2018, that it says supposedly extinct kangaroo rat resurfaced after 30 years, and this was like in Mexico. So I guess you could have a kangaroo rat in Brazil. In
Yeah.
Mexico jungles too. They
What about
Um,
that, wolf? Where does it
that's
normally
South America. So
Oh,
that
okay.
that kind of
Alright.
checks out.
Okay.
So the wolf checks out and the kangaroo rat checks out. I couldn't really find any, Brazilian kangaroo rats, but why would they make that up? That seems kind of like a weird thing to just kind of throw in there, especially if you got like that maned wolf thing.
Mhm.
But no specific location was given in the document. Um, but you can't imagine this was like very early. People didn't have things mapped out. The jungles was very thick. They're just like, oh yeah, it's in there somewhere. We kind of went in this direction in there. So no real exact location that was tangible for people to find it. But no worries, Percy's got it. So in 1924, he gets funding for what would be his final expedition to locate the city of Z. Because remember, he's been on like 7 of them before,
Mhm.
and he left instructions that when he left, that if he didn't return, don't come looking for him. A little bit ominous there. So on this particular trip, he chose to travel light with his eldest son Jack and his friend Riley, Jack's friend Riley,
Mhm.
to go find the city. So in April 20th, 1925, he departs Cioba, Brazil, along with 2 Brazilian laborers, 2 horses, 8 mules, and some dogs. And on May 29th, his last communication was sent to his wife that he was ready to go into unexplored territory with only Jack and his friend. The last report of his expedition was of him being seen crossing the tributary of the Amazon River. And then 2 years later, in 1927, they were declared lost.
Wow.
So he just kind of disappeared. This right here is a map of his expeditions and where he was kind of traveling throughout those 7, looking for this city of Z, based on that manuscript and whatever tales he picked up from locals about something in the jungle.
And what was the quote he had before he left on this expedition?
Uh,
Expedition?
he left instructions. I don't have the
Okay.
exact quote, but he said in his letter, he said, "If I don't come back, don't come looking for me." Essentially, is what he was saying. He's like,
Okay.
like it's kind of weird. Like, why would he give that
Right.
particular instruction, especially if he hadn't given that in the 7 previous ones, right?
Mhm. Can
So,
you,
yeah.
maximize this map? You can
Um.
take our boxes out real quick?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. It's a little bit better.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah. So, I mean, right in the heart of the Amazon in the 1920s. This is
Oh my
not.
god.
It's not like he's riding down the road in in a jeep and is like just pulling off, looking at side attractions or whatever like that.
Mhm.
Very hard. But anyway, so he gets lost, right? And then the volunteers, because he was famous, remember, they had lots of volunteers at the time, and they were like, "Hey, we'll go explore for him and try to find him." So other people volunteered in expeditions when they would go out, because I mean, there's a lot of expeditions going on. They went to look for him too in the jungles, but no traces to be found. It was assumed that the native tribes in the area killed him, or maybe they died of natural causes in the jungles, or did he find the city, Zane, and he decided to stay there, or when he got to the city, were the inhabitants of the city, did they prevent him from leaving?
Right.
Who knows? It's much like the plot of the movie El Dorado, that cartoon
Mhm.
movie, where they find the treasure map or whatever and go to the city and no one really leaves the city. I don't know. That's kind of a head scratcher to me. But what of the city, Zane? If the manuscript was not a hoax, and I know some people think maybe it's a little dubious because there's not a lot of meat in there, but say it's not a hoax, and what it describes seems kind of like an anachronism, kind of something seemingly out of time, because remember, the city they described doesn't sound like a South American city. It
Mhm.
sounds like, as you mentioned earlier, Roman or Greek or something like that, like a villa, or just something of the ancient Mediterranean type of style, perhaps.
Interesting.
So yeah, so maybe what it sounds like to me is like a time slip. Maybe we haven't really talked about those things,
Mm-mm.
or maybe like with a time slip, it's just like you see a vision of something from some other place in time, not where it's supposed to be. maybe that could describe the city just kind of appeared, popped up, and disappeared, and that's why people can't find it again. Or perhaps maybe a little bit further out there, Zane. Maybe like the Romans actually sailed over there, set up shop, and had some kind of little Mediterranean outpost where they, were doing trade or whatever. Um, Seems a little far
I'm
fetched, but it was near the coast, is where the city, the reports of the city were, I guess, were kind of near the coast. And here's some evidence, perhaps, of Rome, being in the New World. Let's see. These are,
hmm,
this is I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, the Tecayic Calixtolhaka heads found in Mexico in 1933. So these are kind of like little figurine heads, Zane, but they're like Roman, right? They have the
mhm,
little Roman caps, very European features, beards. Not what is indicative of the type of pottery or stonework or whatever that was found, in the New World. So they think maybe these heads right here were Roman, so that could indicate that they were over here trading and they dropped some or whatever, and they were found in 1933, or of course somebody could have had them at some other point during the age of exploration and lost them or something like that.
right.
But
Brought it
just a
over
little.
for trading, but it's interesting, and I don't know. Rome's empire was pretty massive, so maybe, but I don't know enough if their boats were, you know, just
Seaworthy.
yeah, seaworthy enough to make it across. I feel like I doubt it, but maybe it almost seems like maybe just some artifacts were got traded over somehow. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe their ship got blown across the ocean, something like that. Could have got shipwrecked.
Right.
Who knows. But from the descriptions of Z, the lost city of Z, makes it sound like it has a little bit more of a Roman flair to me than it does like the native population flair to it. I don't know. Anyways, next city, Zane.
Alrighty.
Next city, we're going to Camelot.
Okay.
Yes. How
Camelot.
about a little King Arthur, Zane?
Camelot. Camelot. It's only a model.
Not Spamalot. But Camelot. Okay, so it was like more of a castle or something, and the surroundings of the castle tied to the legendary King of Britain, King Arthur. We all know King Arthur. Sword
Mhm.
in the Stone, Knights of the Round Table, Excalibur, that kind of stuff. So Arthur is thought to have lived somewhere in the 5th or 6th century in post-Roman Britain. Again, the Rome. So here's a picture of Rome, I guess Roman Britain, right? This is just kind of where they were at around this time. You can see the dates down there, Zane.
Mhm.
So the first mention of Camelot appears in the 12th century. Ah, yes, 12th century romance poem, which described the capital of Arthur's realm. And while most academics and scholars disregard Arthur as nothing more than fiction, there are arguments to be had that Camelot was real. So a lot of the arguments for Camelot seem to stem from corruption of words. So, like the
Hmm.
word Camelot, they say, oh, well, that's not really the original word. It used to be this word.
Okay.
And so, like, for example, Arthur's final battle in the text, the Battle of Camlan, some scholars say Camelot is a corruption of that name, and others say it comes from the word Cavalon, which would have been a corruption of the word Avalon, and
Hmm.
Avalon being a mythical island in Arthurian legends, and the place where Excalibur was made, and where Arthur was taken to heal from a wound. It's like a magical island, Avalon.
Right.
So Cavalon, Camelot, maybe that's the word. Still others suggest it comes from Caerleon. Was it Caerleon? Yeah, Caerleon, which is a town in Wales and was once a Roman legionary fortress. It has Roman baths, etc. This place is tied to King Arthur in that it being attributed to being the capital, his capital, like where he set up shop, a place that he was like crowned king or recrowned king. Also, it has an amphitheater, and perhaps the amphitheater is the source of the legend of the round table, Zane.
Okay.
Amphitheaters are kind of
Right.
circular, perhaps. This is a
Oh,
picture of
wow.
the amphitheater from that town. So you can kind of, I guess, very round, very
Right.
old. You could see somebody saying, like, if you had your knights all seated around here when you stood in the middle, perhaps, that would make sense.
Right. That's
So,
that's that's pretty looking actually. That I would
yeah,
like to be walking around that.
yeah, or live there, perhaps, like little
Yeah.
hobbit hole dig in the ground. So there's another theory though that says Camelot is from the word Camelodunum, one of the first capitals of Roman Britain. And let's see here, got a picture here. These are walls. These are Roman age walls from that city. I'm sure I don't pronounce that right at all. Camelodunum, very very old looking, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, okay. So, where is this place? Where is Camelot? So many options, Zane. As mentioned, the first time we see the word Camelot is from a poem called Lancelot, a Knight of Cart from the 1170s. And here's a little excerpt from that I'll read. King Arthur, one Ascension Day, had left Caerleon and held a most magnificent court at Camelot with all the splendor appropriate to the day. Unquote. That's from the poem, translated, of course. So perhaps just some, idyllic imagery used as a creative license, perhaps for the poem writer. There's a place. There is a place called Cadbury Castle. You went to England. Did you see this place, Cadbury Castle?
Where in England is it? Probably not.
Cadbury.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. A Cadbury.
Yeah.
If it's near Stonehenge, then
It is.
maybe
Yeah.
is well.
This is
I don't
it.
think I saw it, but all
You
right.
didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is Cadbury Castle, and in the 1500s, it was reported that the locals used to call this place Camelot. And of
Hmm.
course, the Arthurian legends have been around for a long time, so they associated this particular mound hill to Camelot. And if I was building a little castle, I guess I would put it up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is located in Somerset, England, Zane. Camelot, or the Cadbury Castle, Somerset, England. And some say was the original Camelot, and Cadbury Castle is really close to a river that's called Cam.
All right.
All right. This is a little picture of Cam. Uh, when they say river in England, it's really like a creek. It's not big. Like they don't have a lot of room there, so everything is like you can see where Cadbury Hill is. It's down in the south of this picture, the bottom here.
Cadbury Hill Forts. Okay.
Yeah, it's only about 2 miles away from the river Cam. So Camelot, you get the association of the words there again. Also, it's near some other cities called Queen Camel and West Camel. And this theory gained some attention in the late 60s and 70s. And they did a dig around this area. And they determined that the site was occupied as early as 4 BC and was fortified at some point by some Britannic ruler. And it was like the largest, I guess, settlement kind of the time in that area. So that seems kind of credible as to maybe it was the inspiration for Camelot. However, many archaeologists reject the Camelot tie here. So where again can this place be? There are so many places in England that have the camel tie to it. Camelford, the River Camel,
Mhm.
everything's Cam and
Everything's
whatnot.
Cam.
Shires and Cams all over the place. It's crazy. So so with Arthurian legend, it gets really murky real quick. And indeed, Arthur, if he existed, the word Camelot might just be a late addition to the story, and his actual capital might not have even been called Camelot. Or 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 a dog keeps barking in Camelot.
They don't agree that Camelot existed
Yeah.
over here.
Not a popular theory in the Zane household, that's
Mhm.
for sure. But anyway, so they think that the capital might not even been named Camelot or Camel anything. And I don't want to get too deep into like Arthurian legend because Arthur could be its own episode fully, and there are some interesting theories I think that have more weight to it, but I'm not really going to get into that
Mhm. That could
here.
probably be a few episodes if you want to really
Yeah, if
dig
you want to
deep.
stretch it out, Arthur extravaganza. But if I knew where it was located, Zane, I'd be famous for discovering it, obviously. And it might come down to something as a place an early Britannic leader was staying at some point, but not necessarily like a fully developed castle as you think, as many people think of a castle. Just
Mhm.
this is where the guy is located at this point in time. But wait, there's more. A retired Bangor University professor, Peter Field, an Arthurian expert, said he's located the location. Oh, how the turntables have turned. The actual location of Camelot, according to him, is a small Roman fort in the village of Slack on the outskirts of Huddersfield in West Yorkshire. And he told this to the BBC. This is where Slack is located, just kind of like in the middle there of England for people to get an idea there.
Okay, got it. Right above Manchester.
Yeah, Manchestershire, Derby, Cam. So let me play for you what he said in regards to what he discovered here. So give me 1 second. Let me turn up the volume here. Now this isn't actually the professor. This is Zane reading the professor's quote. I don't want you guys to be thrown by the very authentic British accent coming at you.
Oh, they're going to be thrown.
It was quite by chance. I was looking at some maps, and suddenly all the dots lined up. I believe I may have solved a 1400-year-old mystery.
All right, British Zane.
I should have worn my glasses for this episode. I would have looked very Professor-y.
It would have been. It would have been. So the place he's talking about, Slack here, where this Roman fort. And this is
Oh, wow.
like a superimposed picture of where it would be located in Slack, right? So interestingly enough, it's under a golf course. Zane. It's
Hmm.
where it's these pictures here. If you're looking on YouTube, this is the golf course, and this is like what the fort would have looked like on top of the golf course.
Okay, I got it
Yeah.
now.
So in the times of Rome, the fort of Slack was called Camalodunum. I think I mentioned that earlier, that I couldn't pronounce just as well. But the word means the fort of the god Camul. So, like I said, that word was modified and eventually became Camelot. Camillus was a Celtic deity associated with Mars, and at the time
Hmm.
of Roman Britain was fairly important, right? A lot of status there. Now, the professor theorizes that since the fort would have been run down by the time of King Arthur around 500 AD, the spot would have held a strategic significance because of its location on the road from Chester to York. It would have been a good place to set up a defensive stronghold for the Celtic Britons to guard against invading Anglo-Saxons, those who were fighting in England at the time.
Mhm.
So why aren't there any records though? Well, I'll quote the professor again, Professor Zane. Here we go.
Hmm.
Although the first mention of him in Camelot is in a French poem from the Champagne region of France from 1180, there is no mention of Camelot in the period between those dates, known as the Dark Ages, when the country was at war and very little was recorded. In this gap, people passed on information. Much got lost in transmission, and people may have made up facts or just messed up known information.
I need some tea, some biscuits. Ready. It's almost 3 o'clock. It's
Yeah.
time. It's tea time.
It's tea time somewhere. So yeah, basically you say, yeah, it was the dark ages. People didn't have a lot of records at this time. Sue them, right? Whatever.
Mhm.
So So the whole BBC or the BBC article, maybe I'll put that in the show link so you can kind of check it out. But truth be told, there are so many strings to Arthur that you could pull on. And the purpose of this episode, like I said, I'm not going to dive down into all these theories, but mainly highlight. We're just kind of touching on lost mythical cities that could be. But no matter what you think of King Arthur and the Legends of Camelot, right? The influences today is surely felt, and it's a way to describe enchanted, almost mythical elements of society, like with JFK referring to his administration as Camelot,
Right.
alluding to a utopia, idealism, and all the positive attributes. Next city, Zane.
Ready for it. King Arthur. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I just remembered there's a crappy like early 2000s movie called King Arthur with Clive Owen, and
Yes.
I I always kind of wanted to see it. I knew it was crappy, but I wanted to see it because it looked kind of fun. But they added elements of like Roman like armor to him, and like I think they tried to add in kind of the historic stuff, even though it was like a 300-ish kind of action movie. They tried to make it
Yeah.
semi possibly historically accurate.
Yeah, I think that's my father-in-law loves that movie. I
Oh yeah.
think I'm not really into it, but it's for my money. I think the best is A Knight's Tale, the documentary Knight's Tale. Uh,
Documentary with the soundtrack from Queen,
yeah, they
which
did it
still
right.
throws me off to this day, but it's still a pretty good movie. So
It's a great movie. I think it's one of the best of its time frame.
yeah,
And they didn't take themselves serious. They obviously knew what they were doing with it. So
no,
yeah,
that was quite the artistic choice.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
moving on from King Arthur.
All right, the next city, Akkad. Have you heard of that?
No,
Yes, this is a new one. Well, for I think a lot of people. So this is we're going to the Fertile Crescent, Zane. Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates. We all
Mhm.
remember it from elementary school,
Right.
aka the cradle of civilization, home to the first cities and empires. The earliest cultures being the Sumerians, which gave way to the Akkadian Empire, which gave way to the Babylonians, then the Assyrians, and so on and so on and so on.
Mhm.
So to kind of refresh memories, here is a kind of a timeline of Mesopotamia. We're talking about, way back, 2000 BC, 3000 BC. The Akkadian Empire, very small blip here around the 2000, 2500 BC ish, I think. Very small.
Mhm.
So I guess kind of to give you an idea about the Akkadian Empire is they conquered a bunch of the city states in Sumer, Samaria, and became known as the first empire about 4,300 years ago under the ruler Sargon of Akkad. So Samaria was just a bunch of little cities. It wasn't an empire or anything like that. Akkad comes along from one of the cities. He's like, I'm going to conquer all of you sons of bitches. And then he does. And then he rules for a bit of time. This is what well, at first when this was discovered, they thought this was Sargon of Akkad. This is what he looked like, but they think now that it was probably his grandson, Naram Sin, I think is his name. But it gives you an idea what he looked like, probably. If that was his grandson. So the empire.
He's got like the King Leonidas beard.
Yes, I wish I knew how to get my beard like that. That's majestic.
I don't know. I always thought you were pretty close to it. I mean,
Oh, thank
obviously,
you.
you got to grow it a little more.
Yeah, I'd get like little braids in it or something would be nice. I don't think Evelyn would like that, but this is this is a picture here of the Akkadian Empire, kind of there in the Fertile Crescent area, just to give you an idea of how big it was. So the empire centered around the city of Akkad, and that was the capital city, which is where the Akkadians came from. They were all like kind of like city states, as you imagine, like the Greeks were, all the city states or whatever. And then, like, say Athens came and took over everything and called it Athenia, or they didn't do that, but if they did, that's what it would be called. So that's where the Akkadians came from. But the location of the city isn't known. Now, there are many mounds and ruins spread throughout Mesopotamia area. But particular of interest here is Sapar and Kafaja region, mostly because based on old Babylonian records, it places Akkad between the cities of Sapar and Kafaja. And I don't know if I said Kafaja. I'm a gold member.
Yeah. I was trying
Here's
to like place it. I was like, why does that sound familiar? Oh yeah, gold member. Faja.
Faja. Here's a map of where Sapar and Faja is. So it was
Gold member. Anyways.
so it was between these two cities at some point, according to the Babylonian records. So one document from the ancient city of Mari in present day Syria, and that's like way up north on this map, you can't even see it, states that Akkad is situated at a river crossing on the Tigris downstream of the current day city of Baghdad. Kafaja is known to be about 7 miles east of Baghdad. So kind of can't really zoom in on this, but you kind of see where Kafaja is. Just a little
Mhm.
bit to the left of it is Baghdad, and they think like the city of Akkad is somewhere around there, perhaps. Now, this is a picture, Zane, of the city Mari, where those records came from. So, there are verified old cities that they get these documents from, or the cuneiform tablets. That's where these are coming from. These old ruined cities, and what have you there. So, still another Babylonian record, and this time it comes from a prison record that mentions that Akkad is in the area of Eshuna in the Dayala Valley northwest of Sumer proper. So this is that's the river that I was just talking about. So they say that the Akkad is right around. See where it kind of terminates into the Tigris
Mhm.
there? It's right around the just south of that. So very, very specific on the locations here. So the more text suggests that Akkad is not far from Ishuna. Now I'll go ahead and try to read this. This is a quote from the records, translated into English, obviously. So it goes, quote, Gamul Sin brought the woman out of the city gate and departed. A report is taken back to my lord. I gave the instruction to the guides until you safely guide the woman through the frontier town, modify her garment and headgear, but being negligent, the men did not modify the attire, but added 3 to 4 other women along with her. Having stocked up, they left and reached Akkad, the city. They drank beer, and having the woman ride a mule, they led her all the way through the square in Akkad. The woman was recognized and she was seized. When news of her capture reached Atamurum in Ashuna, a troop of 30 men armed with bronze spears surrounded Gamul Sen, saying, Your lord has conveyed to you 5 manas of silver, yet you keep on selling women from Ashuna. So he was, I guess, like a pimp, and he was like
Sounds about
trafficking.
right.
Yeah, he was trafficking. So that's where the records for that particular prisoner come from, and they very detailed. I love those old record keepers. I mean,
Mhm.
they're like old bureaucrats. They really get into the weeds of it. So oddly, we have a ton of clues here, Zane, on the evidence to where Akkad is located. The fact that it existed isn't to be questioned. It did exist, but we just can't seem to pinpoint the actual city remains. Now, this might be because it's so old, and then pieces of the city might have been like broken down and used to build other things in the area, or they rode it away from the Tigris because it was right there by the river, right? Tigris and Euphrates, they flooded and you know, came back and whatever over the centuries. It could have buried it up in like mud flows or whatever, etc. So it's just like we don't know where it is, even though we kind of know where it is. We just can't find anything that says, "Hey, this is it."
Mhm.
But I do have an artist rendering of what it might look like, Zane. I drew it. Yes.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, like, it kind of looks like your style in a way. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
See, there's a little dinosaur outside the gates there on the right.
Oh, okay. Well, Don't know if that's historically accurate, but it was a long, long time ago. So
Yeah.
what am I to say?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Acadians, that's how they built the cities. They used dinosaur power. But whatever. Next city, Zane.
We in the same region, or are we going a little further across the globe?
We're kind of staying in the same region.
Okay.
So perhaps instead of the next city, we'll say the next cities. Let's finish up kind of where we ended, kind of more on an archaeological note. And that is with Sodom and Gomorrah. I think this
Oh
is a
yeah.
famous pair of cities most of us are familiar with from the Bible, obviously.
Hmm.
Sodom and Gomorrah, two cities known for their debaucherous behavior, such as pridefulness, lack of hospitality, and of course adultery. The
Lust,
originals, what?
lust, and all that.
Yes, lust and just overall bad people in the city. The
Hmm.
original sin cities that Lot and his family escaped before his wife turned to a pillar of salt. Of course, to punish the people of the city, God rained down, fire and brimstone, destroying the cities in a fiery and violent way. That's what we all kind of remember, I think.
Hmm.
So, as with many things in the Bible, you have some camps that say yes, 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 and then some camps say no, no, no. And we're gonna wade into, I'm sure, like a very uncontroversial topic here as far as biblical archaeology. But some say anything in the Bible is just a myth, and then some sort of allegory that just reinforces teachings of religions and stuff like that. Of course, I'm not here to argue one way or another. The religious aspects of anything here, but if you fall in lines with it, nothing more than a myth, if you think, oh, this is just a myth, well, I personally, I think every myth has some kind of nugget of truth around it. So regardless of if you believe that God rained down fire and brimstone on it, I think these cities probably did exist.
Hmm.
So rather you believe the God's punishment thing, or you think maybe it's just a story that explains like something like a meteor crashing into an ancient city. Let's explore the possibilities of these two cities in a certain region that kind of met a tragic demise. So what do we know? Scholars, or scholarly speaking, based off the text, cities are believed to have been located in the Jordan Valley or Jordan River Valley around the Dead Sea. And here's a picture of the Jordan River Valley. I think, kind of running along there with Israel is what
Hmm.
most people would recognize this particular area.
Very peaceful area throughout the centuries.
Yes, yes. No, no fire and brimstone anywhere. So there's a city in the Jordan Valley called Tal El Hammam, which had been known by archaeologists for some time, but in 2013, after years of excavation work, they discovered that this city was destroyed in the Middle Bronze Age too, and that's between 1750 and 1650 BC. So this lines up with a time period that they think like a lot of the stories in Genesis would fall into.
Hmm.
So this location, this particular city, Tal El Hammam, went uninhabited until the Iron Age, and that began in like 1200 BC. So this area is also heavy with salt, and they think the city was known as Sodom.
Mm.
This is a picture of it. All right, so this here is a picture of Tal El Hammam. This is the place there in the Jordan Valley that they think is Saddam or
So this
Sodom.
whole like kind of space where that there's a tree in the middle, kind of right below the hill, is that kind of like a whole space of where Sodom possibly was
This
or is?
whole this mound here, I guess, this whole mound they think is the
Okay.
city.
Okay.
That whole big thing. But this site location and the surrounding cities, or little towns around it or whatever, in the proximity of this particular mound, is said to. It seems like it had been destroyed by a large scale fire. So lots of ash, melted pottery, melted,
Hmm.
zircon crystals, mud brick structures have been blown from their foundations,
What are
and
those crystals?
it's like little diamond type of things.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
jewelry.
Yeah, zircon crystals, I guess. I think there's like diamonds, but I'm not a gemologist. But they're little crystals that form at certain temperatures.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, so the stones in the area have been scorched, right? And then and this is all in like one layer, which points to something cataclysmic happening, right? And this is just a picture here of the Dead Sea, right? The valley, Jordan River into the Dead Sea, and then north of the Dead Sea, that's where this city that they think is Sodom, Tal el Hamim, is located. Hammam, Tel el Hammam. So they found, desert glass, which is made from like impacts, which would indicate temperatures in excess of 6,000 degrees Celsius. So
Wow.
very hot. So what could cause something like that, Zane? A meteor explosion. Remember from the Bell Island boom episode, we talked about Tunguska, a little
Yeah.
exploding above and flattening things, and how, a meteor could do a lot of damage and create a lot of heat or whatever. This is what they think happened over this city, is that a meteor came down and just kind of flattened the whole area.
It wasn't freaking laser beams or
And
anything
no,
like
no
that
laser
from
beams with sharks. Uh,
UFOs.
no UFO. Well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that kind of event could account for the fire and destruction. So that all, kind of fits, right? Especially with the glass, from the sand glass. Otherwise, it'd be like a nuclear bomb. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how strong these things would be. Okay, so that makes sense, but that's only one city. Where's Gomorrah then, right? That's what they say is Sodom. Where's Gomorrah? I don't know. I don't know where it is, but there's two other cities that are in contention for the possible locations, but they're in the south. So let's show you these
Yeah,
pictures.
I'm trying to remember, just reading the Bible back in the day, like,
Yeah.
I always assumed they were, like, really close,
Yeah.
but perhaps not or relatively, I don't know.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of the thing that gets, I think, stumps a lot of people with this one location, because it's like it's Sodom and Gomorrah. There's like sister cities, right? They should be right near each other. It doesn't make sense like you found this one location here,
Mhm.
but where's the other city? It can't be just Sodom and no Gomorrah, right? So that's why then some people think that these two cities south of the Dead Sea, and I circled them here on the map, this is Bob Ed Dara, and that would be considered Sodom, and then Nemaria, and that would be considered Gomorrah. And it's kind of hard to see it on this map because it's kind of zoomed out a little bit, but they're fairly close to each other. You can kind of see, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Are they separated by let's see here, I'll just zoom in.
yeah,
The Dead Sea, like we talked about. So, okay, there's, like, a little
south of
bit
the
of
Dead Sea. Yeah.
south of the Dead Sea, there seems to be some sort of patch of land, and maybe some of the water is kind of running through these sister cities.
I think they're both
Maybe.
firmly on land. I think that might be a
Okay.
road that's going through there or something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
I think they're only a couple miles apart, maybe. They're not too far away from each other.
Okay.
So, okay, so maybe that makes some sense, but some things don't fit. So while they were both destroyed in fires, these two cities here, it appears that they were destroyed at different times, right? So, like the fire indications are at different layers in the dirt. So it's like that doesn't make sense. So why are they in different levels? But their location seems to fit more biblically than the other city that's up north in relations to Sodom and Gomorrah. So I think it has to do with like the surrounding cities to these guys here, because after the cities were destroyed, and I don't remember offhand, but like Lot went to a certain city, which is like closer to where these southern cities are, as opposed to where that first Tal el Hammam was.
Mhm.
So it's like for him to go to those cities wouldn't have made much sense because it was so far away. So that's kind of what people think about these two cities. Like, well, okay, they fit geologically, or on the map, I guess, but then their destruction record doesn't make as much sense. And here's a little map here of the Dead Sea again, in the relation of all the cities I just talked about. So you have the Sodom, Bob Eld Dara, and down south, and then Sodom, what they think maybe if it was Tel Al Hammam up north. And so where it shows Gomorrah down below Sodom there, that's not on any map there that I just showed you. That's not where Numeria is up a little bit closer to the Dead Sea. So they think maybe Gomorrah might be in another location. So Bob Ed Dara would be Sodom, and we haven't found Gomorrah yet. That's what they're kind of thinking. But who's to say? So where are they? Much like many lost cities, the general area might be known, but grasping the hard evidence remains elusive. And there are many people with many theories, Zane. But I think that's a great. But that's what's great with these kind of lost cities is that these lost places they keep the imagination and desire of
Mhm.
exploration going, and much like the discovery of Troy, and like the anime One Piece. Are you familiar with One Piece, Zane?
I've heard of it, but I'm not too familiar
Oh,
with it.
I love it. It's one of my go-to animes, or I haven't watched it in a while because it's so long. But they have a particular quote in their intro song that I think is fantastic, and I'll play it here for everybody because I think it really wraps things up nicely.
That legendary place that the end of the map reveals is only legendary until someone proves it real.
Yeah, so it's
Very true.
only a legend until you find it, and then
Mhm.
it's real. And I love that, just kind of puts a fine point on exploration in general and kind of goes back to the mysterious cities of gold and people exploring and stuff like that looking for evidence of these things. And I've always been really drawn to exploration and stories of that sort, which is weird because I'm kind of a homebody. But
Yeah, I was about to say, so you don't travel too much, but
no, well, I mean everything's been discovered, right? I mean
right.
it's you
I
don't have
guess
the edges of the maps like you used to, Zane, and
I guess
there's
you were able to travel and do some adventure a little bit when you were serving. So,
yeah, I mean, I did some traveling and went to Japan and stuff like that, but no, it wasn't like you're charting, in the forests of in cities that haven't been found. Although they do exist, we just went over some, and uh, I think the places are out there.
mhm.
So if it encourages you to keep exploring, I really, really encourage that. And I think one thing here, though, Zane, I want to make a note of before we kind of just talk about what we just talked about. This here is from Business Insider, and this kind of gives you an idea. When we say lost cities, we think of like how we live in cities now, and cities are massive. Like we're close to Atlanta. The metro area is like 8 million people or something like that.
Mhm.
But back in the day, cities weren't that big. They were more like what towns are now. So the time frame, if you look on the top here, these were like the first cities in Babylon and Uruk and stuff like that. You only have like 50,000 people, 100,000 people, 200,000 people maybe in like Akkad was I think was the rough estimate what they think the size of that location was. So when you kind of think about it, these cities aren't that big, so discovering them is a little harder than saying finding the remains of New York City, which
Yeah.
has like 20 million people that live in it.
Mhm.
And I think really the first city to cross the million person plateau was Rome, right around 1 AD. So you don't have these big metropolises to look for clues from. So I think that's something important to keep in mind if you're going out there in the jungle.
I'll occasionally think about like, let's say a few thousand years from now, like let's say some sort of event happens to us and either aliens come down to visit us or like another branch of humanity kind of starts evolving and they have so much to discover and research, especially now with everything that we have built. So it's different from well when we're trying to look back, several 100,000 years or a little less than that. Um, I mean, we're gonna have Coke cans going to be around forever.
Yeah, like yeah, all their stuff was made from like clay and I mean you
Natural
have
materials.
stonework and stuff like that, but that
Mhm.
erodes too, and it's just yeah, you don't really have the long lasting elements I think of society so much. But I think I mean, if you believe though that, history is like we've been through these cycles where it's
Mhm.
like before the ice age, maybe societies were built up much higher
Right.
and, during the ice age everything collapsed and we kind of just been building back up again. I think that's, something interesting to kind of look into in future episodes as well. But yeah, definitely the things of finding what you would find from these old cities, probably won't jump out at you as hard as saying like, oh, there's an old VCR sticking out, you know, or if it did, that would be crazy too.
Yeah, let's we find something that's like, well, there is that. I think it's Sumerian, but it's like a computer, right?
Oh, the Antikythera mechanism,
Yeah, it's essentially
Greek.
like it's Greek. Okay, so it's like a calculating mechanical computer, if I recall. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of similar to what I'm trying to say. Is like maybe we could find some ancient tech that would be pretty fascinating. But however, down the road, no matter what happens to us, someone or something is going to see some amazing things from our civilization. But that you do bring up a good point. How there are probably some very ancient civilizations that were pretty advanced.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things under the water too that we just don't even know about.
Right.
Um, and I'd like to cover some of those. And this, I was just scratching the surface. I mean, there are so many lost cities and lands that we could do many episodes on those things, obviously. But yeah, the as far as like going out on expeditions to find a city, would you ever want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think appealing to me, it'd be fun to go into like the jungle and try to look for the lost city of Z or El Dorado or something like that. I know it'd be pretty scary and hard and probably very dangerous. But that is that I think to me that's like the ultimate adventure is like going into the jungle and finding that gold or that mythic temple or something like that. But a close second, going into an ancient castle and finding King Arthur's Excalibur sword, that'd be pretty sweet too. All of them are pretty fascinating. Anytime I've um, gone on vacation and I've seen some ancient ruins, like I saw Stonehenge,
Mhm.
that was pretty fantastic. It's pretty amazing and thought provoking.
Yeah, I think those ancient megalithic structures are always cool, and there's a lot underwater that we just don't know.
Yeah,
And I think it would like I don't know if I mean the jungle is. I mean the jungle f you up. I guess so
I know.
that's
That's what I'm
a
saying.
hard place to look for. But
You
in
get
the Americas, there's lost mounds and stuff. Even in our
mhm,
area, there's burial mounds and stuff like that.
that's
That
true.
they kind of destroyed a lot of them, but I think there's more to that story than we know just because we're not really excavating those things anymore. They're just kind of like
Giants.
preserved.
There might be giants.
Yes, giants. Maybe on the next episode, Zane.
Yeah, yeah. That's an intriguing topic. Well, yeah. So, where would you like to go?
I mean, I think there's a lot of cool stories for lost civilizations and stuff like that in Asia and Southeast Asia, Malaysia, those areas too, because it's like a lot of that is underwater, but or been recovered by forest as well.
Hmm.
Maybe there's some future episodes there for pyramids and stuff like that in those areas. But there's some pretty incredible old cities out there that are just kind of like, yeah, they're out there, and we know the ruins are there, but we're not really sure who built them or stuff like that. But I think yeah, Asia has a lot of it, and China too. They're so secretive over there; it's hard to really kind of do any kind of like exploration there because they're so like closed off from anything like that. But
That's a good point. If I don't think you play video games that much, and I don't do it as much anymore. But if you ever want to get that Indiana Jones type adventurous vibe and like really kind of play it out, the recent Tomb Raider games are excellent. They
hmm,
go into let's see, like they go into kind of near Japan, like the ancient temples there, and
hmm.
then they go into kind of like a Byzantine, almost like uh, yeah, Byzantine kind of empire, almost kind of a Byzantine Christian ancient empire that she explores, and then the last one she explores kind of like the Aztec type area, and
Oh yeah.
it's really fun to like you go through these different temples and um, those are excellent if you ever want to get that fixed.
Oh, let me actually let me share some art here. Hold on one second. I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna get on my art. Yeah. So speaking of Tomb Raider, Zane, I had this art here that I did of Tomb Raider. I think I had it in the background of maybe one of our first episodes, but I don't think people really got a good look at it. So I'll just show it off here.
Oh, can you just let's see? Can we just do you? Let's see.
Oh yeah,
There we
there
go.
you go. So
Oh yeah, that's good.
yeah, there in the temple. So big fan of the exploration.
Yeah, those check off the box if you ever want to feel like you're Indiana Jones or Laura Croft and all that. And
Yeah, I
um,
love feeling like Lara Croft. Yeah, I used to play video games back in the day, but I think one of my favorite exploration ones was from the Dreamcast way back in the day.
Dreamcast, yeah,
Yeah, there's a Skies of Arcadia. It was like a air pirate game, and you explored the globe, discovering new lands and stuff like that. Fantastic, love it. But yeah, maybe do you have any other kind of media here to share with us about Lost Cities, Zane? Perhaps.
yeah. We'll go into this. Kind of goes back into the Arthurian,
Mm.
maybe some monk chants that were about Arthur and his lost city of Camelot.
So high, silent whisper sigh,
Oh.
in the shadows lie, where the dreamers fly.
Yeah, I'd probably put this on my exploration playlist.
It's pretty good.
Ancient wall so high, silent whisper sigh, in the shadows lie, where the dreamers fly. Stones that time forgot, echoes in the lost,
Interrot.
once interwrought,
It's a big
now
word.
but empty plots. Oh, lost cities sing, in the heart they cling, memories they bring, like the early spring.
All right.
Yeah,
That would be
might scare
excellent.
away some animals playing that in the jungle.
Yeah, especially in the Amazon. Get those leopards out of here or
It's better
jaguars.
than it's better than Elton John's soundtrack to El Dorado. Do you remember his songs?
No,
El
so
Dorado.
oh yeah, sadly that did it for me.
Poor Chell, that's your
He
soundtrack.
should have just stuck with Lion King. That was
Yeah,
his
Lion King.
hit
Even
there.
did he do which he did another one too, didn't he? What was it? It wasn't Tarzan, that was Phil Collins, right?
Tarzan was Phil Collins, which
Yeah.
was pretty hilarious, but very catchy too. It's like so out of nowhere, but
Yeah. Yeah,
uh,
those guys. Yeah. Whatever. But yeah, much better than theirs, I think.
Yeah.
We'll be up for a Grammy in no time, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly.
But if you
Um,
want to write to us, I guess, about
yeah.
any cities that you guys might be interested in or found, maybe you found one and you
Mhm.
want to share it with the world, let the Telltale guys tell your story.
Or
Uh,
tell us about like your vacations and all that, where you've been able to explore. Maybe they're not lost ruins, but there's so many
mhm.
amazing ruins that people around the world can visit, and we love to hear your stories or see your videos and photos. That'd be
Or
really
maybe
great.
you got an artifact or something that you found that was out of place or discovered or got from the black market, perhaps. I don't know, but yeah, if you did, send us an email at heyguys@telltaleguys.com. And if you have dogs, you can also share dog pictures.
They want to share about all their history and their visits around the sacred mounds of Zane Wynn's yards.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah. Hey guys at telltaleguys.com. Give us any feedback. Let us know if there's any like episode tips. We want to hear from you. Then go to our socials. It's Telltale Guys on all the socials. Comment, like, share, follow us. We definitely, I mean, we want to like respond to you guys and
Yeah.
do
Share your
some
beards.
engagement.
Share your beards.
Yeah, throw them out to King Leonidas style.
All right. Check you guys next time.
All right, go on your adventures.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Sonny and Josh on a quest, El Dorado, Golden West, Camelot, where heroes rest, Sodom gone, a tale expressed. Mics are on, stories flow, lost cities, legends grow, but outside the barking shows, dogs disrupt the tales we know. Barking dogs, oh barking dogs, interrupt our tale-filled logs. Barking dogs can't stop the sound still, our stories tales abound. Hidden gold and nights so brave, whispered secrets in a cave. Yet those dogs, they misbehave, barking loud like ocean waves. Herald golden through barking tunes, podcasters under the moon. From Gomorrah to Neptune, can't escape barking too soon. Barking dogs, oh barking dogs, interrupt our tale-filled logs. Barking dogs can't stop the sound, still our stories tales abound. On a quest, El Dorado, Golden West, Camelot, where heroes rest, Sodom gone, a tale expressed. Mics are on, stories flow, lost cities, legends grow, but outside the barking shows, dogs disrupt the tales we know. Barking dogs, oh barking dogs, interrupt our tale-filled logs. Barking dogs can't stop the sound still, our stories tales abound. Hidden gold and nights so brave, whispered secrets in a cave. Yet those dogs, they misbehave, barking loud like ocean waves. Herald golden through barking tunes, podcasters under the moon. From Gomorrah to Neptune, can't escape barking too soon. Barking dogs, oh barking dogs, interrupt our tale-filled logs. Barking dogs can't stop the sound, still our stories tales abound.